This spacemaker workflow is going to be looking at the constraint setup. So here in the rapid analysis tools, the constraints need to be set up to look at maybe certain planning regulations for your particular building design. One that I've got here already is just the neighbor setup. So I've just put together a little 12-meter high building just here on the site. And then there is at the top of that 12-meter building a line indicating, or an envelope indicating where we might be causing problems for this particular neighbor in terms of overlooking or loss of daylight, etc. So what I'm going to do here is add a few more constraints. So you can either click on this and you can hover over and should be able to add the constraints there. The link's not there anymore because I've already started on it. So I'll go here to edit, and this is going to bring up the layers menu, and down the bottom of the layers menu you'll find the constraints. Should you need to know more, there's documentation on this. So we're going to start off with facade buffers, and I'll call this one buffer 1, and here we have the information that relates to the height versus the length. So at the moment that's at a 45-degree angle. I can maybe crank that up to 2, and that will change the angle here on the site. I'll also go and add facade distances. This one might relate to, say, fire rigs. So a fire rig, the distance between the facade could be, say, 10 meters, depending on the local rigs. I'll just put this up to 14. So let's see if I can get that into 14. Yep. Height boundaries. This is where you're going to be able to sketch different height boundaries. So if I go to 2D mode here, I can go and start to sketch over that site. So I'm just going to turn off that line buffer just so you can see a bit better. So maybe this is broken into 2 parts. I'm using the height boundaries, and for this particular one, the height boundary for this part of the site might be, say, at 60 meters. So I'll just finish that and then put it above sea level at 60. And then the other one, so I can add 2 parts to the site, and I'll try and keep that similar. So within that boundary there, we'll maybe make this one 40. So when we flick back to 3D here, you can see we've got 2 height boundaries. Looks like I mistyped that one. So make sure you get it at 60. And now we have our 2 height boundaries here. And I'll just drop that down to 50 for the sake of the demo. And then finally for the line buffer here, so just to show you what's happening, you have the elevation set at 12, the height ratio set at 2. If I drop that down to 1, of course it's going to go to a 45-degree angle as opposed to a 63-degree angle. Another thing might be that it's not going to be set at the top of the building, it might be at the bottom part of the building. So this might relate to, say, basements. I'll crank that up to, say, 3, and of course you can do things like flip directions. So I'll leave that as is, and those are my 4 constraints that I've set up. So the facade buffers, the facade distances, which we'll see when we come to do the analysis, the height boundaries, the 2 parts of the site there, and then finally the line buffer. So I'll just apply those changes, and I'll just throw it into the current scenario, option C. And now when we have that show up, we're going to have under the rapid analysis, under the constraints, these new constraints that we've set. So we've got the buffer here, so the neighbor, start with the neighbor to get rid of that one. We've got the 2 height boundaries, so one at 50 and one at 40. We've also got a fire rig, which we can come back to, and then we've got the other buffers here, which start to look at it influencing the building relationships. So what you can do if we go through these is, say here we've got a couple of issues, we could drop this down to 11, and we've sort of addressed some of the issues, down to 10. And this one, again, we could probably do something a bit more just with that particular stack. And I may have to break that up a little more. I might just leave that one for now. I could also grab that entire building here in 2D and then have a think about where it might be sitting on the site. I have broken it down into a polygon building, so it's a little bit more work to manipulate it. But you can see here where we have some issues. So another simple one here might be this particular building here. We'll just take that out for now. Okay, so quick way just to show you how you can start to resolve some of the issues with the buffer. So I'll just turn it off for now. The fire eggs. So at the moment we're not too bad for fire eggs. There's this one kind of doubling up on itself, but I will ignore that one for now. This one probably needs a little bit of review. And if you looked at, say, this building here, if I was going to adjust this one, or if I just go and quickly do a building nearby, here we have some quick indication of the fire egg. So this one was set at, say, 14 meters apart, so these facades can't be near each other, because if a fire breaks out in one building, then it could leap onto the next building. So that's the simple fire egg. Then we have the height boundaries. So we can start to see there's a few issues here with the height boundaries, and of course we can address them by dropping that down to, say, 16, and dropping this stack down to 14, for example, and we're now getting within that height boundary. This one's probably over creeping a little bit, so again, if we wanted to address that, we could take that down to 12. So we can now start to see we're sitting within the height boundaries here. So the last one here is the neighboring one, and it looks like we've probably addressed this, but again, if you cranked this one back up to, say, 20, we can see it encroaching within the height boundary, potentially affecting the quality of light down in this building here. So that's just a quick overview of constraints. So just to recap, we went over setting up this one for the neighboring property. We've got some fire egg ones here, and we've got the height boundaries, 2 height boundaries for the site, and then there is the buffer between buildings. And again, like, if you build too close, or if you've got overlooking, you do want to have some sort of buffer between them, especially if it's multi-residential. So that is constraints, and here's how you can set them up and start to look at those constraints which could affect your local planning regulations.